I'm Mike Mostel. I'm the Social Studies Department Chair at Lakeland Union High School in Minocqua, Wisconsin. And my guest today is Carol Amor. Carol and I are old friends. We've known each other a long time in many capacities. But Carol is representing the First Nations Traveling Resource Center. And Carol has brought a number of books today that would be appropriate for the high school level. And by a number of books, I mean a number of books. This is our biggest stack of any of the episodes in the series. So, Carol, why don't you tell us what you brought here for high school level?
Okay, well, good. I'm really glad to be here again. Want to do a shout out, make a shout out to the Wisconsin Indian Education Association, who actually sponsors the Traveling Resource Center. Mm-hmm. And they've helped us buy a lot of these books and help pay our expenses when we go out on the road. So it's really good to be here today.
Okay.
So the first one that I'd like to share with you, and this actually could fit for any high school class, anywhere, any subject, is by our friend Anton Troyer. Anton is a brilliant young Ojibwe man. Well, I guess he's getting older. He's not young anymore, but he's a brilliant Ojibwe man who teaches, who is a culture keeper, who speaks the language fluently, and is quite a prolific writer. This particular book is everything you wanted to know about Indians, but were afraid to ask. So it's organized by questions, so you can kind of find the question you might like to ask, and he gives a very helpful answer to whatever that question might be. It's great for teachers, great for high school students.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, great for teacher knowledge and just
Yes.
For things that people always have wanted to know, maybe things that you don't necessarily use in your classroom, but just good resource material.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So the next one is one that you might use in science class. Another brilliant Ojibwe man, Gregory Kahete, and it's called Native Science, Natural Laws of Interdependence. Again, a relatively new book, excellent for adults, but certainly excellent for high school students. And staying in that science vein for a while, which is kind of nice because that's not always the first place you think of learning about the tribes in Wisconsin and learning about Native history and culture, but science is a big part of it.
Yeah.
And
sure.
So another author I'd really like you to know about is Robin Wall Kimmerer. Robin Wall Kimmerer. And she is Potawatomi.
Okay.
And she really gets at, and she is a science teacher, and she teaches on the college level. She does a wonderful job of blending Western, Euro-descended science and Native science and Native tradition. One of the books is called Gathering Moss, A Natural and Cultural History of Mosses. Hand that one over. And the other one is called Braiding Sweetgrass, Indigenous Wisdom, Scientific Knowledge, and Teachings of Plants. So very excellent books, well written. You almost can't put it down.
Yeah.
Staying in that same theme, but looking a little more heavily at the environment, is Patty Lowell, a wonderful author on Native topics. Patty Lowell is Bad River Ojibwe herself. Okay. This is 7th generation Earth ethics, and she has a number of biographies in here of tribal members from Wisconsin who have been real significant in the environment, in environmental issues. Okay. So I highly recommend this. This again is Wisconsin Historical Society Press. Yeah. And they produce a lot of good materials for us.
You featured a number of books by Patty Lowell
Yes.
in your series.
Yes. Prolific author, excellent author. Back to Anton Troyer.
Okay.
And this one is called Living Our Language, Ojibwe Tales and Oral Histories. And what's significant about this one is we have the English version of this relatively scholarly book, on this side of each spread. On this side, we have the Ojibwe Moin. We have the Ojibwe language.
Okay.
And so we see that language as a living language today, which it is.
Yeah.
And so I think he's done a brilliant job with this book, living our language.
Yeah, that's cool.
Okay. And then in this stack of books, you have to include a little bit of humor, right?
Mm-hmm.
Humor is important. So I've included Anishinaabe Syndicated by the late Jim Northrup. It also Ojibwe. He, in his lifetime, wrote a number of books, and he always has that humor woven in, always has that humor. A lot of politics in this book, but it's something either for social studies or literature classes that I think would be very useful.
Okay. Now, Carol, I know you said that these books are all so good that you can't put them down, but my stack is getting so big, I'm going to have to put them down to go to the other half.
Oh, I guess you will, because I kind of overdid it on the high school selection of books, didn't
Okay.
I?
Well,
All
now
right.
we're ready for the second half.
That's right. So I wanted to bring things from a number of tribes. So, you know, I've had things from Stockbridge Munsee and certainly Ojibwe.
Yep.
This one is Oneida. And this is called The Bingo Queens of Oneida. Another fascinating book that you can't put down, Mike. It's about how two moms started tribal gaming in Wisconsin.
Oh, okay.
So it will have meaning for a lot of people, I think, in how that all happened and how it fits in terms of sovereignty and so forth and so on. So highly recommend this one.
Okay.
The next one is not just about Wisconsin, but certainly talks about themes that have affected everyone in Wisconsin as well. But it's an author that I really want everyone to know about, which is Basil Johnston. When we're talking about perspective, this is a good example of really getting Native perspective on a lot of government policies, a lot of history.
Yeah.
So this is Indian School Days, which is really focusing on the boarding school.
Okay.
That's something important for all of our students to know before they leave our schools.
Yes. Yeah. And we had a boarding school right here locally in Lac du Flambeau.
That's right. That's right. And I'm guessing that a lot of our viewers will know that the boarding schools existed from the mid-1800s to the early 1900s here in the United States. And it's so important to know about them because there are so many Native young people at that time who were forced to go to those boarding schools and were forced to not speak their languages, to have their hair cut, a number of things that were an effort to stamp out the culture. And yet here we are looking at all of these books by Native authors who know their culture and survived.
Right.
So definitely important. This is one of my all-time favorite books in the whole world, by Joseph Bruchac. And he's done a lot of books for children and for adults, but this particular one, it's called Our Stories Remember, American Indian History, Culture, and Values Through Storytelling, is super powerful. Because, well, it's kind of in the same genre maybe of Everything You Wanted to Know About Indians But Were Afraid to Ask, Anton's book. Yeah. But it does it more topically and thematically than question by question, but it gets at a lot of the same kinds of things. It's just filled with heart and filled with understanding. I cannot guarantee or suggest this book enough. Can we cut that? That was terrible. That last thing. I'll just go on there.
Just keep going.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'd like to recommend Our Stories Remember, one of my all-time favorite books. It's going to give you some wonderful background on storytelling and the power of stories and how much teaching is incorporated in stories. It's a fantastic book. Not only to use in classrooms, certainly in a literature classroom, but just for background knowledge. Every teacher of every age level should get this book. I'd say it's excellent.
Okay, thank you.
Another excellent book is by Louise Erdrich, It's important.
One of your favorite authors.
One of my favorite authors. This book, most of her books are fiction or poetry.
Mm-hmm.
But this particular book is a memoir. And it's real meaningful for us here in the Northwoods because it talks about the islands that are north of us.
Yeah.
It's Louise Erdrich, Books and Islands in Ojibwe Country. And again, tremendous heart in this. It's very contemporary. It gives you tremendous background on the importance of Madeline Island and the islands, in the north here in this state, but also the importance of connection to that land. Mm-hmm. So I can't recommend this highly enough either. You're going to have a lot of bookshelves for all the books I recommend, Mike.
Boy, that's for sure.
But this one is outstanding. For you history people, this is again is a relatively new book by Carrie Miller, who is Ojibwe and was a professor at University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee.
Okay.
Ogimag, which is a leader. Ogima is a leader or a chief. This is Anishinaabe leadership, 1760 to 1845.
Okay.
So this is history, but history is important, right?
Yes.
Talking about where we came from.
Yep.
Again, I highly recommend this book by my friend Carrie Miller.
Okay.
And back to Erdrich, because Erdrich keeps coming back up and back up, right?
Yeah.
I have here some of the poems of Louise Erdrich. Most of what I've shared with you has been fiction or that memoir. This is some of her poetry, and she has lots. This particular book is called Original Fire, Selected and New Poems. And then I have a companion book that was done by her sister,
Okay.
Hyde Erdrich. So Hyde's is called The Mother's Tongue. And I would highly recommend both of these books, Original Fire and The Mother's Tongue.
Okay.
And you won't believe it, Mike. We're of the hundreds of books that we could have recommended, we're down to the last one that I brought for this series.
Yeah. And this one is hot off the press.
It is. It's hot off the press. This is the book about what kind of started all of this, right? It's the reason we're here today.
Yep.
This is called The Story of Act 31. How Native History Came to Wisconsin Classrooms. And a call out to our good friend, Dr. J.P. Leary, who's a professor at UW Green Bay in the First Nation Studies Department, but we know him from years ago in the American Indian Summer Institute.
Yep. And also when he worked at the Department of Public Instruction.
That's right, that's right. So we love the work that David O'Connors is doing, holding up that tradition and doing all of that work. But certainly want to shout out to JP, who did so much linking to, and it talks about that whole story, to Alan Caldwell, who was part of the beginning of Act 31. And this book tells the story, it tells why it's important, it talks about a lot of the key players. Again, can't recommend it highly enough. It just seems appropriate to end this segment and this series with JP's book, The Story of Act 31.
Okay, Carol. Well, that's a lot of books. My summer reading list got quite extensive now. But Carol, thank you very much for sharing your knowledge and your passion for books, for Native American culture, for quality materials to use in the classroom for any teacher. If you've enjoyed this episode, we also have several others. We have them focusing on the primary levels, the intermediate grade school levels, the middle school level. This one's for high school. And we also have an episode on criteria or characteristics of good materials that teachers are looking for to use in their classroom. So, Carol, thank you very much for sharing your wisdom with us.
It was really good to be here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.